Since Disney is currently remaking its fairy tale movies into live action remakes that are currently declining in quality, like the first few ones were fun, but now it's just annoying. I thought it would be nice to explore some fairy tales that Disney could adapt instead of making these live actions, because really that's what they should be doing. The really charming thing, the magic that Disney had, was that they took these very simple fairy tales and turned them into really magical and great movies with, like, they changed the stories a bit. If you know the Grimm versions, they were often very different from the Disney ones, but like they made changes that like were contributing to a new really interesting plot. So yeah, the fairy tale that I think they could be adapting that would really fit them would be the fairy tale The Six Swans by the Brothers Grimm. I mean, the Brothers Grimm are the main ones from whom they took those fairy tales from, so it would make sense. The story starts with a king getting lost in the woods, and he asks a witch for help, and the witch decides to help him under one condition, which is that he will marry her daughter, and he agrees even though he doesn't like her, because otherwise he would be lost in the forest. And so he takes her to his castle, but he had a previous wife from whom he had 6 sons and 1 daughter. He hides them in a castle in the woods because he's scared that his new wife will do something to them. So he has like some clue of a yawn, which is the only way you can find this castle. And he goes often to see his kids, which makes the queen suspicious, and she finds out through the servants what's going on, and she goes through the castle where she turns the brothers into swans while the daughter remains safe. She probably didn't know about the daughter's existence or something. That's actually, I don't think it's explained, but I'm not sure. Well, the king finds out, and he doesn't know that it's the queen, and the daughter wants to stay in the castle, to which he agrees. In the night, she goes to search for her brothers, and the next day she finds a rude hut where there are 6 little beds, and when the sun sets, the 6 swans flew in, and they took their swan skin off and turned back into humans. And the brothers warn her to leave because they can only do this whole, like, only be their normal form for 15 minutes each day. And the only way to fully end this is if she spends 6 years never speaking or laughing, and making 6 little shirts out of aster flowers. And she decides to start working on these shirts in a tree where she stops speaking and laughing. And some huntsmen who wouldn't leave her came, and they decided to bring her to the king. And she can't speak, but he falls in love with her and marries her, which is weird, but like I said, Disney used to make many changes to these fairy tales, so they can kind of change it, and they have some ideas how they could. Anyway, the king's mother hated her, and 1 year after they got married, she had a child, and the mother carried it away and marked her mouth with blood and accused her of cannibalism. Then, with the second child, she did the same thing, and yeah, the king didn't believe her the first 2 times, but then when it's the 3rd time, she wants her to be sentenced to death by fire. And the 6 years are almost ending, and so the 6 swans come, and she throws the shirt she has made on them to turn them back, which they do. And the youngest one still has his left arm as a wing, because she didn't fully finish the 6th shirt. But then she tells the king that she's innocent, and he believes her, so they have the mother killed and live happily ever after. Now, the story like that is not good enough today, especially for a decent fairy tale movie for Disney, but like I said, they can make changes. And what I would do is I would give the villain more depth in this case, like the stepmother who turned these 6 brothers into swans, and basically she wants to have the kingdom for herself, and that's why she turns these 6 brothers into swans. And the sister manages to escape, and she decides to not do anything about it, since she doesn't believe that the sister would be a threat or something like that. And yeah, the sister, she would be the protagonist of the story, obviously, and I would say her name should be Annalise. I just feel like it fits. And she should to make it a little more interesting, instead of having her be in this castle where she's accused of cannibalism this whole time, she has to go on adventures to find like a very rare flower out of which she makes those shirts. And yeah, she has a love interest in this story too, but it's not just some guy who sees her and decides to marry her, because that's kind of, again, it's a prince who accompanies her on her adventures. And I would also give the brothers like distinct personalities, and throughout these 6 years they accompany near her as well and help her when she needs it. So in my version, yeah, the villain turns the brothers into swans for the throne, and now the sister's only way to save them is to make the shirts out of like really rare flowers while not speaking for 6 years. And so she goes to a kingdom where those flowers supposedly grow, and there's like this one very special place where every year one of these flowers grows there. I'm making new lore up. I know it's not the best, but it's an idea. On her way through to this place, she saves the life of a prince from a wild animal, and she decides, like, he's immediately impressed by her and tries talking to her, but then he realizes that she can't speak, and he wants to help her for what she did to him. And at first she's kind of rejecting him, but then he's like stays with her, and so she tries to explain without speaking what exactly she wants, and he understands that she needs to go to this forest to get those flowers, but he doesn't know yet why. So he decides to help her, and each year they experience a new adventure where they have to get to the flower. And so year 1, I would say, is like the witch uses illusions to stir them away from the flower, but they manage to overcome it. Year 2 is like it's the place is like very frozen, and they have to get to the flower in time and go back quickly enough so they don't freeze. Year 3 is like the flower is kind of surrounded by thorns, and they have to get through them to reach the flower. Year 4, they're really dangerous wolves which are protecting the flower. Year 5 is a dragon, and on year 6, the flower is now on a mountain, like the place where the flower grows, a mountain grows there, and they have to reach the flower because the stepmother, I would say she shouldn't be gone from the story like she did in Fairytale. She knew that the sister would be trying to rescue her brothers, so she has cursed this place, so every time a flower grows there, something crazy happens that makes it really difficult to reach the flower. Like I said, I would like the brothers to have some more personality and contribute more to the story. So I have the 6 brothers. Alaric, who's the oldest and wisest and most responsible. He watches over everyone, and in the year 4, he's a distraction for the wolves when they are trying to attack Annalise and the prince. Thomas is impulsive and has a bit of a temper, and he feels very hopeless at the situation. He's not sure if they can really be rescued at the start. However, as time goes by and he sees Annalise manage to overcome all these difficult tasks, he feels more inspired. And then one time when Annalise feels like she might not be able to do it, he decides to give her some encouraging words. Corin is kind of like a dreamer type of guy, and he's very calm, even though he's also obviously upset with the situation, but he's actually very hopeful from the beginning. So in the first year where she just has found out what is going on and she's like really upset, he helps her calm down. Colin is the 4th brother, and he's like the smart one, and when like Alaric is hurt by the wolves, he mixes some healing herbs to heal him. And then the last brother is Oliver, who's a little playful and adventurous, and he's the one to help Annalise climb the mountains and the prince. And I would say at the end of the story, right, she can speak again and she explains things to the prince, and then they can also fall in love, obviously. And then, I find it a little weird that in the fairy tale they just don't go back to the father, and so in this version they ended by going to the castle where father lives with the queen, and he's been very worried about his children, and he didn't know where they were, and he has sent people to search for them, but 6 were swans and 1 was in another kingdom, so it was really difficult. But they come back and they explain everything to him, and the queen panics, so she tries to, with some spells, still reclaim the throne for herself, but they defeat her, and then that's the happily ever after. Yeah, so you can feel free to tell me in the comments what you think of this version, and also what do you think about Disney making these live actions. Do you think that's a good idea, or do you agree that they should focus more on making new movies, like I would say original, but I mean they are based on already existing fairy tales, but it's something new. It's not something we already know, because this fairy tale is not by everyone, and with these twists it would be something new.